we haven't gone into the nuance of how Fearless works because I think we're still in Fearless mode for these best of ones. And basically what that means is the next time WE and BLG play against each other, they will not be able to pick the champions that were picked in their first encounter against each other. So maybe the second best of one is where we'll get some of the quote-unquote crazier picks, but so far pretty standard. Bans across the board are the Varus, the Kalista, you have some jungle bans as well, and then of course first pick Jace for WE, the return of 2 melee solo laners in Yone and Ambessa for BLG.
Okay, so interesting that they are happy to give the Ambessa over to Bin. I'm happy to give Knight Yone as well. Previously picks that we've seen these two players do absolutely disgusting things on. So getting their hands on these champs, certainly something to keep our eyes on. As Monki play Monki, Wukong locked in for the WE jungler again. Addition to this roster off of a good series versus AL in Split 1. Got brought in full time and now getting his opportunity to show why as we move into a top side of BLG, which is just disgusting to look at.
Yep, they lock in the trifecta with Sejuani, so you have double melee solo laners and Wei on a facilitator like the Sejuani, which pretty much plays into his wheelhouse and what BLG wanted to originally look for when they were juggling Wei and Shun, and ultimately decided to go full time with Wei because he was going to be less resource intensive and be able to give a lot of his time over into it accelerating the carry powerhouses you have in your solo laners. Now, I like what BLG are doing. They're trying to take out effective lane dominant 80 carries for Taeyoon to be able to have in his wheelhouse after the Ziggs was banned away. So no Jhin, no Misfortune off the table.
Yeah, and you can see as well that WE are looking to ban away things that can kind of fend for themselves. Ezreal notably is still up and available, which is something that we might see Elk pivot back to. You've still got Corki as well, which is available if Elk is looking for something a little more aggro down on that bot side. But with what BLG have already drafted for themselves, there's going to be no shocks when Wei is pathing to that top side, right? We are fully expecting a Sejuani to be ganking Bin, to be ganking Knight, and making their lives better. Elk might have to take a little bit of a back seat, so the Ezreal, the perfect champion to be doing that on.
Yeah, he can let his top 3 core do all the engaging and the fighting on the forefront for himself, and he's just fends for himself. So I imagine that assuming the counter pick in the support role works for himself, it could be something a little bit more less peel oriented and more heavy on the dive, just trying to support the 3-man melee core that BLG have drafted for themselves here.
What WE have already is a very good teamfight composition, right? You've got a little bit of poke as well with the Jace, the Corki rockets that are going to come through. I like that there's a good amount of teamfight as well between Vampire and Monki. They'll be able to start those fights off. And I honestly do enjoy what WE will be able to do in 5v5s if they reach them at parity. I do fear for them going up against BLG though. There's counter pick been taken in the support role as well. Corki can do pretty well versus the Ezreal, but the Alistar should have the better end of the trading patterns versus the Rel. So eyes are going to be on Vampire to try and navigate those that little bit better. And then of course already just the innate synergy that we've talked about between the Sej and the Yone also going to be absolutely incredible. A massive dive composition for BLG, and what we're looking at for WE is not a lot of disengage. They've got some, but not. There's not a Janna there, right, that would just turn it back around. But they couldn't lock that in because they didn't see support pick. So tricky.
Yeah, it is a bit of a sticky situation for Vampire in that instance, because if you lock in something super revealing in, like you said, the Janna, then maybe there's a more devastating counter pick that On gets his hands on. So he just goes for something like the Rel, and you're still going to get counterpicked by the Alistar, which means that even if you try to find a powerful engage, you can get easily punted out by the Alistar. There's ways for BLG to be able to kite backwards, at least with their backline in the Ezreal. The topside core, a little bit of mobility, a little bit situational, depending on what skills they have used, but I'm a little concerned for Team WE because, as you pointed out, there's not that much disengage on their squad, and this is a comp that is very reliant on setting up poke, just like BLG Gaming did in the first match of the day, where if you get to the objectives first, you can chunk people face checking with the Aurora. You can try and throw rockets in and get massive spikes with the Jace, especially if this is, you know, more of like a bruiser Jace that will deal decent damage with the accelerated shock class. If you're not the first to get into that pit, BLG just owns you. I'm no cap.
Long story short, yes. that is the answer. You're already seeing a small adaptation. Not too sure of the purpose of these two supports being on the top side. Maybe just a little bit of defense, but it's that level 1 ward, which might prove to be quite important. Vampire just giving a little bit of safety over to Cube. Maybe that brush is particularly important in this Ambessa versus Jace 1 versus 1. I will not pretend to be particularly proficient in the top lane 1 versus 1s, and
agreed.
Maybe that's something that Vampire has been instructed to do rather than that will do on a routine basis.
We can ask one of our top lane mains on the broadcast team, and unfortunately, Rude, I don't think any of us are top lane mains. Maybe Grapes. Maybe Grapes is the closest.
Yeah, Grapes is a Scion 1 trick. From what I recall.
So maybe not the.
Well, no, he'd be good on the particulars of brush warding. That's a very Scion thing to need to know about.
Okay, you know what? Respect. But is he Baus levels of Scion 1 trick though?
I don't know. I mean, probably not. I didn't see Grapes at EMEA Masters this split, so that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, a little bit of poking and prodding from Vampire, just getting a chunk off of On's health bar, as Elk is at least trying to go even toe-to-toe to Taeyoon with the wave push. Looks like Vampire and Taeyoon should be able to hit level 2 first, so they're going to immediately... Oh, wait, they didn't actually get level 2 first. Decent chunk on the On, but now Vampire's exposed. Elk might just use the flash here. Nope, it's just going to be Vampire immediately flashing away. Not taking that chance. Elk will only use the barrier, but preserves the flash, same as On, and maybe there's still a kill opportunity onto Vampire as long as Taeyoon is not able to equalize.
Yes, so the wave here is actually really bad for WE. It's going to make Vampire's life exceptionally difficult, and you can see Monki actually foregoing his entire top side to be down here on this bot lane to either shepherd this in or to find a kill.
They have to look for On, I imagine, but he can still flash away, so I don't know if it's a... Oh, it is enough. Monki slams the crushing blow and gets first blood.
And if this wave crashes as well, then all of a sudden it's absolutely fine for WE. Means that that wave under the turret is going to bounce back eventually, and then all of a sudden one skipped camp or skipped timing, I guess, on that top side gives Monki an opportunity to relieve his bot lane of that concern that they will have had. Want to know now, though, what Wei is going to do with this time, because he's going to have a lot of tempo to try and make something happen. Where he clears his camps, will probably get double crab off of this if he chooses to take that. But there's a lot of things that Wei can be doing with this time, and the question just is, what is it that he chooses?
Yeah. Karis, for what it's worth, because he has push, I don't think Wei is going to get a chance to look for double crab here and cross, so he's going to drop a ward here before he bases. He should get information on the second spawn on Monkey's Raptors as well as his Krugs. So this is really good information just on tracking where WE's jungler is going to be. And that should give a little bit more safety for Elk and On to navigate this laning phases. Because he invested that time into getting that bot side kill, Monki is slower on the first full round clear.
Yeah.
And we're going to see if BLG can actually take advantage of that with Wei on Sejuani.
And again, right, this is good for WE that they get that first 600 gold lead. They have 2 solo laners that are currently winning out in their individual matchups. In fact, the least advantageous area of the map is actually that bot lane where they went and found that kill. But this is a WE roster that is looking to bounce back from a disappointing split number 1, right? They brought Karis and Taeyoon in. They went 1-9 in their first 3 best of 5s overall in terms of game score. Vampire's looking for another engage.
Oh, Taeyoon flash over the pulverize, trying to force the opportunity onto Elk. That gets his own flash in response. And Team WE really putting the pressure down on BLG's bot lane just in time as Monki has finished his base, walking towards the bottom lane, but he's going to get spotted on that ward on the Krug camp. So now BLG have a heads up on what Team WE might try and do on the next wave pushing into the tower.
Yeah, I mean, these are just a couple of wards that you'll see junglers very frequently put down. You know, after your first player walk into the bot side jungle, use both wards, go back to base, swap for a sweeper. I mean, I saw Yike do this back when he was playing in the LFL on LDLC. This is such a tried and tested combo that you can do to give you that information, and it's information that has been, you know, beneficial for WE this time, or for BLG this time round. Not necessarily thwarting a dive, but already giving an advantage over to BLG in that bot side, knowing what they need to be careful for. But I'm looking at that mini map here, Raafaa. Look at who's making their way into that top lane. Taeyoon, Vampire, already looking for this first spawn of grubs, and Bin, well, it seems to at least be on the menu.
He teleported in. Oh no, don't say it ain't so. Bin is going to face check, get a lot of health chunked off of him. Thankfully, he's very slippery on the Ambessa. Didn't have to pop the flash. But that does mean that he will seed wave prio, and that guarantees the first round of grubs going over to Team WE.
Yeah, and I think that the flip from Vampire probably on cooldown there. He lands the Shattering Strike, but doesn't have the remount to pull Bin all the way back into the team that would have probably secured the flash at the very least.
BLG just looking for a soft combo onto Cube, but because Team WE go for the first round of grubs, BLG just go for the cross map to get the first dragon spawn. I don't think there's a threat onto Cube here. Has flash available, but Wei is level 6, so maybe they'll take the chance, and this would put Elk back in a nice spot in the game. We're gonna see who leads the charge first. On goes in, tanks the turret aggro. It's too clean and clinical from the side of BLG.
Yeah, I mean, Cube there, I think even if he flashes, he probably dies. He can make it a little bit more difficult for BLG, but the odds are that he probably just dies there anyway. Might have liked to see him commit for a little bit of the wave, but this has been getting zoned off as well, and ultimately it's just 300 gold going into a Sejuani, which is the about weakest advantage that you could argue that they could get from that situation. Bin is able to come in and collect this wave, where the same to be said for Cube. So overall, in terms of experience, a slight advantage for Bin because he's able to get this solo and got the majority of the last wave as well. But we'd like to see, or we do like to see BLG being proactive as well.
Yeah, and they definitely need to step up that part of the game, because we've already gone over how disappointing it was for BLG to end the way they did in their first split between the best of 5 series loss against Undertalk and then coming up short against Top Esports in the lower bracket run. BLG need to, for the sake of their fans and for the sake of their own morale, be on as hot of a start as possible. And once again, as we pointed out, you specifically, if there's any player on this roster that really wants to ensure that this game leaves no doubts whatsoever in the minds of any LPL fans, it's that Knight has got to absolutely 1v9 this game. He's got to put on a star performance, and he's got the champion to do so in this Yone.
Yeah, exactly right. He's such a playmaking champion as well. And up against Karis, who's coming into the LPL in 2025, right? Played split number 1, had some quite high expectations. I remember looking at him in Demacia Cup and thinking, you know, if there's an area of the map that WE should be looking to play through, probably is going to be Karis or Taeyoon. Hasn't had that heavy hit, that start to the LPL that he might have liked, and Knight should be looking to take advantage of that. A player in the LPL who has been almost definitely tenured in at this point as one of the greats, now needs to continue to do that and improve upon a split number 1, which was disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, Knight had not missed the finals for multiple splits up until this previous one. The fact that BLG come up short against Top Esports puts a giant chip on Knight's shoulder for him to say, this is not the caliber of play that we should be okay with. This is time for Knight, who, you know, seeing the regular season MVP go over to Doinby, obviously we don't know how his reaction was, but I would imagine that it's like, hey, you know what? I'm someone that has gone to finals multiple times. I should be getting regular season MVP. I should be the person that is on the top of everyone's list for, you know, all pro in the mid lane. And his absence, you know, definitely left a lot to be desired for BLG fans.
Yeah, it's noted, definitely. And I think that dialing back in a little bit on this game in particular, I'm looking at Wei, who is again another player who's had that sort of, maybe not as much as on one roster, but definitely that experience at this top level of being up there as one of the best junglers that we've got. He's 2 levels up over Monki right now, definitely ingratiating Monki into the LPL about as best as possible by giving him a 20 CS deficit, 2-level disadvantage. It's going to go down as soon as this Gromp goes, but level 6 to level 8 at this time. Monki, you know, found that first blood down on that bot side, but he's never really recovered in the farm game from when he sacrificed so much to keep his bot lane stable.
Yep. This is what happens when you invest a lot of time in your camp rotation in actually going for a play instead of just full clearing before trying to make moves on the map. Granted, it was a nice look for Team WE, and they made a punish on a volatile lane that was exposed by Vampire and Taeyoon. But now with the level lead, as you called out, and the first one with the Heartsteel Rush, Wei can just turn it on, turning on to Cube. Monki tries to disengage the fight with the Cyclone, but he's got no other support, and now he's caught out by Bin's public execution. But Karis and Vampire join the fight on the right side. Monki falls to Bin, but now they've got to deal with the reinforcements from Team WE pouring in for the right side. Bond! Pulverized flash on the 3 members, and now BLG can really turn up the heat in this fight. No chance for WE to find their way back in this one. The Grubs are theirs, and multiple kills have fallen into their pockets.
They still have all 3 carries, but they don't have any way of getting in there, and the HP from BLG still too high. Wei with that completed Heartsteel is a menace in the front line, and somehow Bin, with just a Caulfield's Warhammer, is able to come away with 2 kills in that skirmish. BLG right the wrongs again. They weren't particularly far behind, but all of a sudden they pushed that gold lead back in their favor, and now the Eclipse finished for Bin. He is going to be a menace in that side lane, and you have to just think, Cube, you know that this Sejuani, he's got ulti. There's been so little action in this game for so long. How is this a surprise to you that you get jumped on like this? But flashes out, gets himself to safety. Unfortunately, there's no such luck for Monki, who is having a torrid time of things, not just in that farm department now, but in these fights as well. Saving grace for WE is that they are able to find Elk on the backside, as he's just a little bit split from the rest of the squad, but that really is the silver lining in what was a very patchy Cloud.
On might be in a bit of a trouble, does net a 2-man pulverize and gets the Aftershock Keystone proc, so he can be durable enough to just walk away. Bin trying to pick up the minion wave while the turret is going down slowly. Knight and Wade jumping onto Cube, knowing he doesn't have flash, and on, or Elk I should say, aiding with the True Shot Barrage over the wall. I don't even know if it clipped him. Yes, it did. 3 kills over to BLG, making it 4 total now, and Bin and on trying to make their way away from the dive from Team WE, and not much is going to get accomplished in terms of kills, but Team WE managed to push them away from the tier 1 on the top side, and that is first brick going over to Team WE.
That is great play by On there to keep his top laner alive. Just, you know, the small things, right? Manages to knock away the Rel, and if that crash down had landed, there's probably the damage there to follow up from the rest of WE, but they are not completely out of this, and in fact with the gold dead even, that first brick going the way of the Aurora, I mean, eyes on Karis once again to live up to that expectation that we had from him coming over into the LPL for 2025. This is off the back of Cube having already fallen, but just look at On here, just nice and easy, knocking away Vampire, and it is just the small things, but it interrupts the crash down, and Bin was able to dash out to safety anyway, but with that extra CC coming down, you just don't know. You can never anticipate it, but if you don't get the opportunity to land the CC, that's even better.
Yeah, and the patience to space out the cooldowns instead of just expending the full combo in one swift setting, it just buys as much time as possible for Bin to make his away from the threat, I should say. Now, Dragon not spawning for another 3.5 minutes. BLG have netted 2 to their name, so they are in contention to wrap up a very fast Dragon Soul at this pace. Rift Herald spawning in the next minute and 52 seconds. I'm not sure who got the second round of grubs. It looks like it was, or I'm trolling. We saw the fight. My bad. Anyway, moving on. Rift Herald spawning in a minute and a half, guys. It's super late. It's like 3 a.m. over here in Utah.
We are chilling. We are chilling.
We're chilling. We're chilling.
Taeyoon able to get this mid-wave played on out. And for the most part as well, WE here, I think in an okay position. I think that the concerns come from when the 5v5s start to happen, when BLG start to fully coalesce as a 5-man unit and they push all of their buttons, because they have got one heck of a diving composition. WE do not have that tool that we're looking for as an answer. They've got one Valkyrie, right? One tool apiece.
Oh, the Glacial Prison reached the very end of the range, so didn't guarantee the stun, and the slow wasn't enough for Taeyoon to feel threatened. He just Valkyries away. It's a nice look from BLG. No harm, no foul. Still quite some time before the third dragon spawns, but WE are now gonna fancy a chance here on forced to pop the ultimate here just for the damage reduction. And Vampire was looking for the flash. Elk preemptively getting out of harm's way, and Wei forced to flash over the wall as well, but they get the empowered blast cone, so no threat and danger for them. But now a couple members, they're down summoner spells, and actually I misspoke. Elk didn't even flash, he just arcane shifted away, so that's a flash down from Vampire all alone.
Quick little pop, and he's able to get out to safety, and again, it's just a lot of these resources that are attempting to be committed. Cyclone now down, but that doesn't really get them what they would have liked, and we can see way down on the bottom. Kill participation going pretty darn strong. He's been a part of everything that so far BLG have done in this game, doing very well on those neutral objectives as well, and just in terms of making sure that Monkeys felt punished for going for that early bot gank. And it's one of those things that, you know, you think, well, how can one bot gank have been so punishing? And we're getting to see quite what the issue with it can be. What needs to happen is, well, we need to see Taeyoon make the most of that, because it was the Taeyoon Vampire bailout that they went for, and now the question just needs to be, can they pay it back to their jungler? Yeah.
Vampire might be in trouble, but uses the crash down to escape from Wei and on. Just currently fighting for position and vision control in this top river where the Rift Herald awaits to be taken. Knight continuously getting chip damage onto Karis, threatening the siege of this T1, and Karis now too low to defend the remnants, and Knight, even with the turret ramping up, says, I don't care, bro, I'm taking this tower.
Okay.
Well, the wraparound. Okay. Forcing the flash on a Monki, dodges the Glacial Prison, BLG, 20 seconds before the dragon spawns.
Yeah, exactly the right time to go for this as well. Knight has been whistling away at that bot turret for ages, using the Soul Unbound to slowly just take little pot shots at that turret. Karis not quite able to defend it well enough, and it's again just a small advantage, that small laning thing that is giving Knight the opportunity to go for these plays and giving that little bit of extra gold as well.
Yeah. So far, the fights haven't really been around Knight's lane or Knight's side of the map. It's really been through Bin, which is why he's got pretty nice Eclipse, fast spike over Cube, who is still working through what I believe is going to be his Shojin after taking a pit stop on tier 2 boots, as well as the tier. So it does delay his spike a little bit, but it does make BLG's top side 3-man core so dangerous, so deadly, that if Wei wants to wait until his Glacial Prison comes back up, he can, but he can also just use the fact that his 2 solo laners can activate his Permafrost on any target.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And this is now that breaking point, right? This is the do or die, I feel like, or the first point in the game where we're going to get to see this full explosive team fight with everybody really around. Wei no ulti, they're going in!
Oh, there it is, the combo. On leads the charge with the flash, and Bin follows up beautifully with public execution. BLG swiftly execute Karis, and now for Team WE, no chance to contest this dragon.
It's a quick flash from On, and again, it's a 100-0 in the space of the CC. Exceptional performance from On, just getting that quick snap engage, and WE are left to flee out to the sides, out to the wings, because they've got no business going for that third dragon. It wasn't the big explosive 5v5 that I'd envisioned, but it's certainly one that sets the tone for this game, as BLG are not looking to give up this Herald either.
You know what? I'll give credit over to Team WE that they did not completely give up their entire advantage just for the third dragon in the first match. However, going for the Rift Herald, Wei wants to ensure that they don't get anything on this map, and Monki is able to space himself away, goes back in with the Cyclone. Knight in trouble, but he's got a shield, and he's buying time for the rest of his team. On might be the first one to fall as Karis rejoins the fight alongside Cube, and BLG, they might have been enough more than they can chew. Here comes Team WE, collapsing in on the Titans that are BLG, but they're falling, they're getting sliced down. Now Bin is the only survivor that manages to equalize the fight, but he's just 1 man against 4, and WE will claim a Rift Herald for their prize.
Yeah, Bin grabs 1, but WE take 4 in response. Karis able to teleport in, make that difference from the mid lane. An early engage from Wei, it goes wide, using Glacial Prison onto a clone. Monki able to buy enough space, and again, club another engage from BLG. And just like that, This is WE with an exceptional just sort of backstep. They recognise, okay, we need to give Karis here. But then after that, all of the tools that were used by BLG got firmly punished. They spent so much trying to take down the Aurora and successfully doing so. In trying to find a fight afterwards in that quicker window, ended up losing out big time.
We might not even have time to look at the replay for the topside fight where really I think it was the more important one that took place, but we're back on to the thick of the action here on the Rift. Don't want to miss any more crucial information between Team WE and BLG, who have now respectively on Team WE side have taken the gold lead, and finally we get a chance for that replay.
Yes, the Cyclone is buying so much space here. Taeyoon and Monki do an incredible job keeping themselves safe, dodging out on Q3 from Knight here, Taeyoon. Just biding time, getting BLG drawn in, enough so that Karis can come in, Q can come in. Those teleports that we're, so frequently looking for to make that difference, just not quite, or rather having the best impact rather in this instance, and for BLG, just not the same.
Starting up the fight once again, Glacial Prison doesn't find anyone. It's just the slow field as Team WE are able to evade its threat. But BLG do enough to stop the siege of this tier 1. The Rift Herald was sent into it and got some chip damage, but at least it still stands for now.
You know what, Raafaa? We came into today thinking, okay, the first 2 games, they're going to be a wash. And game number 3, we'll get some good action, but that has been anything but the case so far.
We're eating good in the first 2 games already, brother.
We're eating very good. It took 18 minutes for Weibo to have that semblance of a lead that they managed to come away with. It's now taken at least 21 minutes for either side, really, to break open a massive advantage in game number 2. And for WE, this is a massive win already. Going toe-to-toe with BLG, they got smacked down around the Dragon, losing Karis, but then having a rebuttal is something that we'll so infrequently see from our typically weaker teams. So frequently they just get knocked down once and then don't have a way back in. But WE, this time round, come back with a vengeance.
Yep, and this starts to set up for the 3rd match of the day between EDG and Team WE, where EDG showed a strong, promising early game before being quickly done away by the more commanding Weibo Gaming and more sure of their map play. But at this point, 22 minutes in, as you already illustrated, Team WE didn't just have a decent early game. They had a bounce back, and now against probably a more legacy team in BLG, that, to me, that speaks higher of the caliber that Team WE is demonstrating in their first match of the 2nd split with Monki on the roster, who, because of that fight around the Rift Herald, he shot back up in the gold lead against Wei. And now, to be fair, that's kind of expected if you're playing a carry jungler versus something like a Sejuani, but still, now you have 2 items on this Wukong. You're a bigger threat in these fights.
No, absolutely. And I think that for Monki as well, his opportunity to make that name for himself, especially in best of 1 style, is about as high as it's going to get on getting half HP'd from a combo from Karis, and that probably just gives full control over to the bot side jungle for the next 10 to 20 seconds over to WE. Look at the timing as well. Drake, the soul, spawning in 20 seconds for BLG, and they don't really have an answer to that. Knight is on that top side pushing away, which I think is probably what they're going to look to leverage. And even if they do just give this Dragon, they are going to be getting something for it. So it's about Knight making that difference. Maybe not now, but in those team fights with all this extra gold that he's getting, and can teleport into this if they want to as well.
Observers pointing out where the deep wards from BLG are, and unfortunately for them, they don't really have the deepest wards. The farthest outreach they've got is in that Otacon pit, so nothing too favorable for a flank from either of the solo laners. They're just gonna walk on in, and Monki just starts up the fight with the Cyclone. Wei tries to stall the fight out with his own ultimate as Bin finds his way now into the backline, but On has already fallen, but Bin equalizes it, support for support. Bin still trying to do his best. Knight finds the backline! There it is! Fate sealed right on top of Karis, and now it's just down to Taeyoon and Monki to carry out the damage, but BLG do enough to ward Team WE off away from the Dragon, and that is soul claimed for BLG.
It's close and it's scrappy, but BLG come away with the soul. Their leading focus for that fight is secured. Yes, they trade 2 for 2. The fight's a little bit even, maybe a little too even than they would have liked, but coming away with that objective means that all future fights will be just that little bit skewed in their favor. Now WE making a play for this bot tier 1 that they can't go for, they can't extend all the way. I'll say tier 1 falling in the mid lane. An extra boon for BLG now.
They can't even get the Otacon either because the threat of Knight sticking around could easily make things go from bad to worse. Let's take a look back at that replay.
So it's Monki going in through the front door, right? We talked about BLG being this composition that really wants to dive and probably does it quite successfully. Karis, I think, stepping back into his ulti, mispositions himself, and now he's got to play defense, play catch up. He's too far back. Knight spots him out, takes him down, and Wei as well with a flash on top. Goes immediately for the Aurora. They know the target they need to take down, and then follow up nicely afterwards to try and find the dragon.
Yeah, that Q3 layered beautifully on top of the Fate Seal from Knight seals the deal for Team WE's demise in that fight in BLG. Now with Soul on their side, they should have the advantage just in raw stats. Don't even look at the goal differences. Monki is the only one that can really make a difference since he has a respective gold lead over his counter opponent, but everyone else on BLG is just so strong at this point, and even further so empowered by that Chemtech Soul.
In fairness, like, this is still 2-item Jace, 2-item Ezreal. If we see WE start to play a little bit more at range, if they can use the poke without getting engaged on, if they can fulfill their prophecy while still denying BLG theirs, they have tools, they have ways to find a way back into this game. And now Monki with that Guardian Angel can be that trigger, that engage source that WE have been using and using again and again this time round. Tier 1 turret in the mid lane now under fire, and they're gonna look to get it.
Empire forces the onslaught here onto Elk. The public execution for Ben was too out of range. He doesn't get a chance to join the fight, and now BLG are scattered. Knight coming in now, trying to see if they can equalize. Now that Ben has joined the fight, looking for Karis, finds it again with the Fate Seal. The Q3 lands right on top of Monki, and the GA is popped. But his teammates, they're starting to slowly corral around Knight. They give him the reinforcements they need. The Blast Cone. Knight survives for now, but Taeyoon with a quick flash guns down Knight, and BLG are left to scramble. Team WE will pick up the Otacon.
Yeah, you're going to have an advantage in the 5 versus 5 BLG, but if you lose your AD carry with no response, that's no chance that you take it. Now Bin sniffing, snipes out Vampire. Can he find some more?
I don't think he's going to get any more, though. It was a nice attempt from BLG's top laner, but a little too more than what he could actually handle. Team WE will still secure themselves this Otacon, and with all of the Blood Roses that they can pick up, it should equalize a little bit of the level differences. In fact, Monki now climbs to a 2-level lead above Wei.
And this is Vampire just snapping onto Elk as he's channeling True Shot Barrage in the Rel's face. Knows that he's actually locked out of his Arcane Shift for a little bit of time. Finds the Shattering Strike as well. And just taking out the Ezreal. It's really good heads-up play from Vampire to spot that mistake and punish it as well. And yes, Karis falls for this, but look who's free-firing this entire time. Taeyoon, that 2-item Corki, left largely to their own devices. Able to get away from Bin as well. Chunks out Knight, who's only really able to get that far away because he's got the shield bow. But another flash from Taeyoon secures another shutdown for him. Goes back to base. Finishes off a full LDR. Previously only had the crit cloak, so not really the biggest advantage, or not the biggest spike. See, Karis goes back to base, finishes off that Zhonya's as well. So now permanently able, or rather every 2 minutes able, to find that stasis and bait people in. Whereas previously Monki was the only one with the advantage, and whilst that's still the case in his jungle matchup, there's an advantage for Taeyoon. That gap between Karis and Knight is closing, and really, we're just looking at the top side. We're looking at Bin to make that big difference in the gold.
And he missed out big with that public execution just being short of the engage range, which could have been the difference maker between BLG getting another major fight for themselves and being one step closer in closing out this game that should be theirs to take. But because of the result of that fight, Team WE, they're the ones with the gold lead, in spite of the fact that BLG have a Chemtech Soul on their side. And with a minute away from the Elder Dragon spawning, it's still anyone's game here, Root.
Yeah, the Elder Dragon has one title, and it is the Great Equalizer. It doesn't matter what the game state says. If you secure the Elder, you win team fights. By nature of its buff, you will just win those team fights if you take them even on uneven footing. The Elder is so powerful that you can just destroy your opponents with it, and especially when the enemies have got a Chemtech Soul, something that thrives when you've got lower than 50% HP, and the power of that comes from then. The Elder, the ability to execute, is very, very powerful. As this is a big play from the BLG jungle mid duo.
This is very bold. If BLG can try and burn down this Baron before Elder spawns, they'll have enough time to make a macro play. And uh-oh, Vampire goes too far. Monki forced to dive in to try and bail out and salvage what was made by Vampire's fumble, but it is just a disaster for Team WE. BLG make the punish, spring the trap, and now find themselves in a 5v3 as Karis tries to get a little bit of damage with the in-between worlds. It's just a chunk off of Knight. Elk is still severely low, about a fourth of his HP left, but BLG, they can just send Wei to solo the Elder Dragon, and it's totally okay.
So Elder's going to be picked up, the Elder will lead to the Baron, and all of a sudden just one fumble is going to cost them big time. Taeyoon with the Valkyrie baits out Knight's flash. Might not be the biggest deal in the end, and BLG are going to be largely happy with the sequence of events, but Vampire just stepping that little bit too close as undone. 30 minutes of exceptionally hard work from WE. It's BLG that start this off, that engage this a little bit by just poking their head in. And then Vampire just goes that little bit too quick, too soon. It's all about the spacing on the approach. Knocked in. Yeah. It's a tricky one, right? Because if you freeze frame 2 seconds earlier, his team's on top of him. But then they split. They go to clear the mid wave. They walk up to the right to clear the mid wave, and Vampire walks down and left to walk into the brush. All of a sudden, that's enough space to get a Hex Flash to not really be punished either. And the rest of the squad just not quite on fire, not quite where they needed to be. And the small micro steps end up being the problem.
Yeah, it's so close that I find it hard to fault Vampire for it, because it seemed like they were all on the same page that they were going to face check as a unit. But like you said, literally 2 frames, clicks to the right, clearing that menu wave, instead of clicks to the left, walking with Vampire. And if that's what really is what gives BLG the final nail in the coffin for Team WE, then the blue side squad is going to look over this match with a little bit of heartbreak, but also they should be taking away the fact that, hey guys, we brought it to BLG so far. Now, the game is still not over. BLG still have to close it out, but with Elder and Baron on their side, I find it very hard to not do so here.
No, I mean, at the very least, they should be breaking open the base. And with a 4K gold lead, they can just dive with the Elder as well. Knight, you can see, just charging forward. Knows what the mission objective is, and once you've got 2 inhibitors, getting that third becomes so mundane, so fundamental, that it's not really ever a problem. Another 40 seconds still, so they have this wave, they have one more where they've got Elder, and WE, they just have to play respectfully, they have to concede this. If they fight, they die, and if they die, they lose. And BLG, it's methodical, it's meticulous, and they just take open the base.
And for Team WE, at least they know what they can give away, what is worth sacrificing to stall the game out again for another attempt at an equalizer, and that's the Elder Dragon spawning in 14 seconds.
So that's actually the timer for how long the buff is active. It's not spawning again.
Oh, darn. Okay.
So it wears off in 5 seconds.
Okay.
If there was another Elder already.
The equalizer's not spawning for a few minutes.
Almost, but not quite. I mean, I don't know that a second Elder Drake is going to spawn this game. BLG, from here, the game plays itself. They have they have super minions pushing mid lane, they have super minions pushing top lane, and they have a tank that can tank up a turret down in that bot side as well. They just need to go 5 people bot. If 5 people show up in bot lane to answer them, then they just wait for the super minions to kill the Nexus. As soon as somebody goes back to their base to defend their Nexus turrets, then you can just engage as BLG. Wei is so tanky that him dying is just not a foreseeable circumstance.
Glacial Prison lands right onto Cube. That's a nice target to pick off first. Now, thankfully, Monki's clone is going to stall BLG's siege for just a second here. But as I say that, they make their way through. The inhibitor tower falls. The third inhibitor should be next on the menu. And Team WE, four-man Magnastorm, maybe! That's a big engage. Knight loses his GA. Ben trying to stall the fight as long as he can. Monki with the second cast of Cyclone already used, but Ben finds the public execution on Taeyoon, the troublemaker for BLG, and they finally did him away. Monki will not get a chance to upset his former squad today, as BLG, after a grueling 34 minutes, will take this game in stride.
Yeah, for 30 of those 34, it was a nail biter. It was as close as you could call it, but one quick engage, one snap decision from On, and BLG end the game with a 10k gold lead. Baron and Elder in their back pockets. A truly miraculous performance from BLG, a solid performance from WE as well. But in the end, that consistency, the little lapse in judgment, even though it was 30 minutes into the game, one little slip-up costs them dearly.
And that is what separates the top teams from even good showings from our bottom teams in the league. It's those microseconds, that split-hair decision-making, and BLG being such experienced players. See that window, waste no time whatsoever, immediately pouncing on the opportunity. And it's just, you know, a chance for Team WE to go back to the drawing board before their match against EDG, which is going to be after this game, to get a chance to say, hey guys, this is what we did really well, and this is what we can build upon. This is what we need to clean up.
And you know, it's a really tight turnaround for WE as well. They got to pick themselves up, dust themselves down after what was, like you say, a pretty entertaining 30 minutes that just ultimately gets let down by one mistake. They've now got to go back, do all of this all over again, except versus theoretically easier opponents, right? I think that EDG showed some good stuff to start us off, but nothing really the caliber of BLG in totality. So for both of these sides, really, BLG, you know, they can be happy. They can go into what is going to be a very tricky game for them up against Weibo after this. They can go into that with a little bit of confidence in their stride. But WE as well, they should be taking some confidence from this game, no doubt.
Yeah, and if I'm EDG, I'm a little worried because maybe EDG were thinking, hey guys, we showed some really good stuff against Weibo Gaming, and we're both us and Team WE are not expected to do well against our first opponents, so we're gonna have the upper hand. And then EDG look and go, oh crap, they were really good against BLG for a while.
Like they held their own, right? And for WE, again, like we've said, it's a big boon for them to take it, and I think that for BLG, it's even bigger that they're able to. I won't even say right the ship, because they were never really behind, let's say. They were within touching distance for the most part. W had small advantages, but BLG were always able to stop those advantages from being anything that were just more than overcomable.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Team WE were in it for longer than EDG were against Weibo Gaming, respectively, just goes to show that there's a lot more to be gleaned and positive about on Team WE's side. Now, for BLG as a squad, since they did walk away with the win, it's the first game of the split. It's not a completely dominant showing as what you might hope from, especially if you are a BLG fan or a longtime LPL fan who wants to see the best teams of the LPL being super dominant as always, so that LPL has the strongest chances of going toe-to-toe with the best teams internationally as we start prepping for MSI in June and July.
Yeah, and I mean as well, I will give credit to On this game, because I think he played exceptionally on the Alistair. I think the majority of the engages that came through for BLG that netted them positive things came off the back of On. And there was a couple of really solid picks that he found, lots of really solid engages coming through as well. And outside of the one misstep from Vampire, I don't think he had a bad game either. I think both supports were pretty darn on it for the most part, and it is just that about that one misstep that happens that costs it big time.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to bring up here, Rood, for On, because when we looked at some of the shortcomings of BLG, I think On was a big factor in a lot of those first split losses. On in particular was seeming kind of lost in where he wanted to be on the map, and a lot of the engages that he picked or just got caught out in were not ideal and very uncharacteristic for someone who is a world-class caliber support historically, right? And being able to go to the finals for multiple international events to then really perform lacklusterly in the first split, not what you want to see, but this right here, WQ Flash Cinema.
it feels great to pull that combo off, honestly, as Alistair. And this is also a really good play from Knight, using the sweeper to spot out where Cube is going to be on his way into the mid lane or wherever he's rotating to. Because there's no way of Cube knowing that he's spotted. There's no way of Cube knowing that actually they have complete vision of me here. And they, end up getting that kill, that takedown in favor of them. But this is a great example, again, of BLG just reaching that little bit too far, and maybe it being a case of, well, actually, WE have got the chops to take it with us and take the fight to us, but also that we need to be a little bit more cognizant about how we take our fights as well, because we should never really be in that position to begin with.
Yeah. And some of these fights here are also what almost looked... All right, wait. No, this is the wrong fight. There's a fight around here where... Team WE actually get the jump. This is the fight where BLG Bin misses the public execution, and you see how much of a difference it makes when BLG are not firing on all cylinders and Team WE don't waste any opportunity. And the fact that Taeyoon, as you called out, was finding a lot of fights where he's just free firing and no one is really threatening him, that really put a dampener in BLG's ability to actually have a clean game.
No, absolutely. And I mean, double cone, those two cones should never be allowed to spawn on top of each other. It does make for very funny interactions. But this is the straw that broke the camel's back. This is after 30 minutes of Breakneck League of Legends. And honestly, I think that if there isn't a Chemtech Soul, Elk may actually be in a little bit more trouble there than maybe he ends up realizing. But it's Vampire again with another great engage that just isn't quite able to be followed up on. Look at Elk on the right-hand side here for this entire fight. Yes, he gets caught up in the initial Magnet Storm, but there's nobody else there to follow him, nobody else to help out. And unfortunately, that element of desynchronization, not quite fully being there, fully being ready with the team, ends up being the straw that breaks the camel's back and the game-ending thing for BLG.
So who gets player of the game, Rude? I think it's On.
I would be okay with On. I think there's an argument for... I think there's probably an argument for Breathe as well on the... Oh, not Breathe, sorry.
Bin?
No, I mean, I would actually go against that entirely. There were too many public executions that went wide.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of hard
maybe
to...
Elk. I don't know.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, good. I'm happy with this.
We're 2 for 2, Rude. Let's go, baby.
This fits. This seems appropriate. On was there. He was ready. Shout out the supporting roles, man. Yeah,
I think there is just a little too many inconsistencies between the solo laners. Otherwise, if it was like a super dominant game, Bin would have gotten it, Knight would have gotten it, but On, fantastic game on the Alistar. Now, before we toss to break for our game numero 3, our super banger between EDG and Team WE, we actually have a very special message for all of our homies in the chat at home, and that is the one and only that we're extremely grateful to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up the show. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it pays on-air talent and content creators. So subscribe to our Coffee, linked in the chat, to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. We're going to be back for more action between EDG and Team WE right after this break, so don't tune away.